it's very important to understand the creative business side of things. So then your design can align with the client's business needs.
You're listening to the Architect My Life podcast, a show dedicated to empowering women architects and designers to achieve business growth, financial freedom, and health and wellness. I'm Aya Shlachter, your host and CEO of MGS Global Group. Our company provides Revit, ArchiCAD, and CAD drafting services to busy architects and design firm owners. MGS Global started as a part-time gig when I was a new mom, but it has now grown into a thriving business that provides drafting support to creatives, helping everyone maintain a healthy work-life balance. This podcast is proudly presented by MGS Global Group. Now let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone, our guest this week is Smita Sahoo of āśaya Design. Smita is the owner, founder, and creative director of āśaya Design, a luxury interior design and architecture firm based in Chicago. With nearly 2 decades of experience, she specializes in designing multifamily residential, commercial, and hospitality spaces that create emotional connections. Smita's design process involves creating a compelling concept that tells a story and considers users' goals. Her signature designs combine Western and Eastern elements, influenced by her background in architecture, interior design, environmental psychology, and sustainability. āśaya's mission is to produce projects that positively impacts clients' brand equity from an economic, social, cultural, and environmental perspective. In addition to her work, Smita serves on boards and sponsors organizations that promote women's ownership in hotel and commercial real estate. She is trained as a classical Indian dancer and painter and enjoys cooking and traveling to experience different cultures. Practicing yoga and mindfulness are essential to her life. I'm so thrilled to talk to her today. Welcome to the show, Smita.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited.
Same here. So I always ask all my creative entrepreneurs this standard question. Tell us about a childhood experience or a person that influenced you to become an architect or designer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be definitely my father, and also my art teacher. So growing up, I was encouraged by both of them that from very early on, they kind of spotted that I'm more on the creative side. I grew up in a community where everybody is a doctor engineer. So for me to get that encouragement to be in the creative side, I would definitely give both of them that credit. So
So I'm also like Asian and you're Indian descent, right?
yeah,
So how did you move to this country? Because it's completely different.
yeah.
I mean, did you go to school in India first and then you moved here?
So I did my bachelor's in architecture from Sir J College of Architecture, Mumbai. And then a lot of my seniors at that time were exploring for their education, like their master's or PhD in US or UK or even Australia. But most popular destination was US or UK. So I kind of like, had some good mentors even in like architecture school where they were like, yeah, you should pursue, and also support from my parents and my father who studied abroad as well himself. So for him it was like, just go experience life, be more global, see what's out there. If you can always come back if you don't like it, but it's good to explore. So I was being encouraged by the surrounding, and Mumbai itself is a very global city. So growing up helps with interacting with different nationalities, and yeah, so that's how I ventured here, and I've never gone back.
How long have you been here,
It's gonna be like
Smita?
20 years now.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And you're in a
Yes.
great city. Chicago is really, I love
Yeah,
Chicago.
I love Chicago. So as an architect, Chicago architect and an interior designer, Chicago is like a paradise for me. I remember studying about Chicago architecture in school in India. So to come here and live and work with some of the greatest, sharpest brains is amazing. And it's like a mecca for design hub for interiors too. So no complaints.
That's great. So
The weather is bad.
yeah, it's okay. I'm always hot, so I'm also in Cleveland. So it's
Yes.
very close to Chicago. We're in the Midwest.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty cold here. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious about one of the things you said, you're a creative design thinker. Is that the same philosophy as
Uh-huh.
design thinking philosophy?
So, I mean, yes, design itself is a creative field. But also in the creative field, I feel just only thinking about spaces and design and colors and textures and forms, that's not enough. I feel like as you progress in life and as you progress as your professional, it's very important to understand the business side of things. So, for example, if you're designing a hotel or a restaurant or a mixed use project, it's very important to understand the creative business side of things. So then your design can align with the client's business needs. And that's what I mean by like creative thinking. It's not only just in design space, but also overall, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the overall goal? And it carries throughout. So I feel like in school, as in design school, we heavily emphasize just on the aesthetic part. And yes, there's some programming and everything, but we don't focus too much on the creative business side of how these spaces we design eventually boils down to a revenue, or it's all about business. So aligning and having that vision of like how your design can actually strengthen the business goals is very important, and very few designers understand that. I feel like that's a continuous journey. As you progress in life, you should pay attention more to that.
So I'm very curious about the business side of running a creative design firm, because I always say creatives were taught how to master their craft, but not taught how to run or grow a business, right? Can
Mhm.
you share a specific example or techniques that you use, especially when you're in a pinch or when clients don't want to pay or when they don't have money for a budget or something like that, and you still need to be profitable?
Yeah, that's the ongoing. I think everybody's trying to figure out. So it's not like I will tell you, there is a method to madness, and I'm still figuring out too. But I think it's very important to understand the financials of goals and also what is the result, the finance side of things before you start designing. By now, like, I have about good 20 years experience, so I kind of have an idea of how things would cost and everything. So to have that discussion with any kind of clients, whether it's a single family home, whether it's a developer driven mixed use project, anything, everything is tied to finance. So having those kind of like early on discussions very important. And then in terms of creative thinking, and this goes back to my previous comment, is really understanding the vision of the project. Because once you get the vision of the project, then you know what elements to prioritize, where to spend your dollar amount, and where you can not do something cheap, but just, that's like your second priority, and you can do something less, but then really focusing on the highlight elements. And I think that is a technique I use. That's also like creative way of thinking, is like not only in design, but also like how are you using these different buckets of money to optimize what the goal is. And I think like that's again, there's no method. You really, it's a case by case. Open communication with your client, transparent communication is the key. And then running the business, it's a different type of finance, right? So recently I just finished reading a book called Profit First. I'm not trying to sell the book or anything.
I have that too. I
Yes.
have that. Okay, talk about
Yeah, so
it.
I love that book because what it talks about is you have limited amount of resource. So if you can allocate your expenses versus your profit versus your all these things you have to spend, and then figure out a method which is comfortable to you, and then follow that system. So for businesses, profit is very important. And the book says typical way of thinking about profit is like you earn something and you spend, and then the remaining is your profit. But this book kind of like has a reverse engineering where it says you earn something, you take out the profit first, and whatever is the remainder amount, you make it work with that. So, for example, in 1 week, you made, like more revenue. So then that means you have a little bit more play money. The next quarter, maybe you made a little less. But then you're always working towards whatever the fluctuation is, whether your marketing budget goes up and down. Of course, the salaries you're paying to people up and down, you cannot regulate the, salaries, whatever you have committed. However, it forces you to creatively think about how are you using your resources. So again, it's about creative thinking, that there is like some rules that okay, you have to spend this much money in marketing and PR and things like that. But then if you have less resources, how can you still optimize that? Can you do more web-based marketing? Do you have to do more, like maybe throw less party, or you just come up with solutions? It's almost like when you want to lose some weight, it's like your portions of you still eat the same amount. I mean, you still eat the same things, but in smaller quantity. And what that does is that your plates are smaller, you're consuming less, but you're still consuming your favorite proteins, your carbs, and your everything, but lesser amount. But then, and then also your body is behaving accordingly. So the business also is that, like, if you have the mindset that I'm going to go and spend everything and then whatever is remaining is a profit, then you always will have that mentality. But then if you set a goal that my profit is, let's say, 15%, and that's the goal, then you always follow that. And at the end of the year, hopefully, you are a profitable business. Because at the end of the day, I feel a successful business is just not who does great work and keeps the client happy and themselves happy, but also it's like profitable. So yeah, that's my current experimentation. We'll see how it
I know that
goes.
I read that book, and I think you have to open like 5 bank accounts or something, right? Like
It's
for taxes and some
yeah,
like,
it's
yeah.
almost like um like old days. So I'm from India, and like my grandmothers and even my mom, the way they used to save money is like they would just hide once they get some salary. I mean, these, I'm talking about women who are mostly homemakers, and they have to manage their home. So they will take the salary which is given to them by their husbands or whoever, and then they just split it up. It's like, okay, this is for school uniforms, this is for this. So it's a similar mentality. You're just putting in different boxes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be five different banks. It can be just one bank and four different accounts or something, as long as you don't touch your money and spend it. That's the key. So the book talks about having a different bank account, especially for the profit, because so that you don't touch it. Because otherwise, human beings, they can be greedy. They can like start stealing from them,
Yeah.
stealing from their own bank and like allocating. So yeah, I am trying to implement that, and let's see your end if I do that well.
This is great because I also read the book last year, and I'm also starting to put profit.
Mhm.
It's hard to see the profit like set aside because yeah, I have payroll and expenses and
Yes,
bills to pay, but I think it's a great exercise. And I think that what you're doing as a creative is you're also being creative with your money.
correct.
And I really believe that designers can be really good business people based on stretching resources.
I absolutely agree. So this year, one of my biggest goals, and I started with this book, is to really understand the finance, because as designers, of course, it's a practice and it's an ongoing practice. The more you do, your craft gets better. But then we are never taught finance and business in schools. And I'm on certain boards, like at the University of Florida, and I am talking about like we should introduce understanding business from very early on, because life is everything runs on money and business acumen and nothing else. You could be a fantastic designer, but if you don't understand the business plan of the client, then your designs fail. So this year I'm reading a lot of finance books. I'm reading, Profit Force was the first book I finished. And I think it's very important to understand money and how it works, because that's the backbone for everything.
So what other business books are you reading?
So I have started reading Surge. There's a lot. Like I'm reading some books on negotiation, which is Never Split the Difference, which is about like how do you negotiate with, your one of your questions was like if the client is not willing to pay something, how do you negotiate with them gracefully? We all have to figure that out. I'm figuring it out too. The pumpkin plan. It's about how do you laser focus on one area which you really enjoy, because you enjoy and because you're so laser focused, you'll really excel. I am also reading some philosophical books, because these are two number heavy books. You need to counterbalance. So I'm reading about how to have grow mental strength, because happiness and your expectations from the world is your control. The better you manage your expectations from everybody else, the better you can manage your own control and mind control. So reading a lot of books on that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like, um, that keeps me busy. These are like heavy reads.
I know,
So
like after finance, because it's too heavy, let's go on to philosophy.
yes.
At least you're now reading like, those type of romance novels I used to read in high
No,
school.
I can't waste my time
I know.
on
I read
romance.
that in high school, not anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
let's talk about your design business. I really love the name āśaya. So what does it mean and why the name?
Correct. So yeah, the name was very important. So I started my business in 2020, and like after hitting 15, 15, 16 years in corporate America, I wanted to start something new and fresh. In 2020, it was like the quintessential time for change and
Sorry to
everything
interrupt. Was this before COVID or during COVID?
during COVID.
Oh,
During
so
COVID.
you're one of the entrepreneurs who started.
Yeah.
Okay, now this gets better. Okay.
I believe in never let a good crisis go waste.
I thought you've been an entrepreneur for years because of your amazing portfolio
No.
and your website. But carry on. Tell me
Yeah.
about the history of why you started.
Yeah, so I didn't want to start a name just by putting a design name after my name or like just calling it Smita Sahoo Studio. I wanted it to be a philosophy which I believe in, which my whole brand and the entire design is aligned with. So aside, and also I'm Indian, so I wanted to celebrate my heritage as well. So asaya is a Sanskrit word, and it translates in English to cradle of feelings and thoughts, and that's what my business is about. So I'm an interior designer, I'm an architect, I have a background in environmental psychology, and I basically understand it's all about, and I lead with my heart. I'm one of those business women who is like, I go with my gut feeling, I go with my heart. So, and my spaces too, it's aligned with the emotional aspect. And then I also have a very technical side to me too, which is the numbers which I'm trying to figure out. So for me, this word was the essence of this business. It's about the cradle of feelings and thoughts. It's like being thoughtful designer, being it's about emotions. You're capturing human emotions or you're capturing a business emotion. And that's what I do. And that's what I spend a lot of my time understanding. And then the thoughtfulness is like, how do you optimize based on the client's revenue or things like that? And that's where the analytical side comes in. And then also, I wanted this to be more of a legacy name. My vision is that if I when I die after many years, this firm can continue to live with a different CEO or somebody else. I don't have to be the CEO forever. So that was kind of that's like my long-term vision. And then I started with the name and my three ethos. I didn't have a single client, but now we're going to enter our third year this July, and there's no looking back. And it's an incredible journey, and I will never ever give up this madness.
So can I tell you, my previous guest, podcast guest, she told me the only job security that you have is entrepreneurship. So congratulations, Smita. Like it's not easy because if you're in corporate
Yeah.
for like 20 years, I mean it's really hard to just who would hire you? I'm sure you have a lot of experience, but getting your first client, like let's talk about that. Like who was your first client when you started and what year was that after how many months post pandemic?
Yeah, so I started July, but then I got my first client actually August. Yeah, so it wasn't that I didn't wait that long, but it was a small residential project, and it came through a referral. So one of my very close friends here in Chicago, she's also like helping me with marketing strategy, and it was through her connection I got the first small residential project in Bucktown here, and then then it was my one of my previous clients who reached out. They were doing a co-working space they wanted my help with. And then it just kind of like grow into bigger project. But it actually really started with a very small, literally a single family home project. And now I'm working with one of the biggest developers here in Chicago, Sterling Bay. I'm in their office right now. So it's the growth has been exponential, and I can't complain.
I was just gonna ask about your biggest project in Chicago, Lincoln Yards, right? What is
Yes.
that exactly?
So Sterling Bay is one of the most influential and very cutting edge developers here in Chicago. And they are developing this whole neighborhood called Lincoln Yards. And it's right at this point where there is like some amazing neighborhoods adjacent to it. But this was like an old space where it was like industrial dumps. So they're cleaning up all this space. They're just really activating. It's also close to the river. So they are doing the whole river walk, or they're extending the river walk. I don't know how many, if you've been to Chicago. So it's like it was a dump yard, and they're just taking it and like bit by bit and piece by piece, they're really activating it. And within 10 years or like 15 years, it's going to be one of the thriving places to be in Chicago. That's
So
the
is it an urban design project? It's like a urban
Yeah, I think
revitalization.
yeah, it's a neighborhood. It's a
Oh,
neighborhood. So it
yeah.
has a lot of mixed use projects. It has offices, it has restaurants, it has a big sports field, entertainment, you name it. It's basically a small city within a city.
So what is the scope of your work in this project?
Yeah, so I'm working on, we have not named the parcels because every parcel right now is still like A, B, C, D, E. So I'm working on one of the biggest parcels, and it has 4 towers. And I'm going to be working on all the amenities and the social spaces for the 4 towers. And I cannot tell too much because it's still confidential. But yeah, that's the scope. And I'm working with 2 other design firms. So it's been an exciting collaboration with the Sterling-based internal design team, the 2 other design firms, architecture firms. One is based in Chicago, one is from New York, and then it's me. So it's a power-packed design team, and we have fun collaborating, and it's been a blast so
First of
far.
all, congratulations. I always like to hear when women, especially I'm Filipina and I also moved here like 20 years
Yes.
ago. And when I hear other women like getting big projects in big cities, it makes me so happy.
So you'll be happy that one of the design lead for a Sterling Bay, she's from Philippines too.
Oh, really?
And
Go.
she's one of the partners, design partners. And yeah, it's been exciting. So the interior design, or like the core design, is being led by three women. So I'm Indian, one is Japanese American, the other one is Filipino American, I'm Indian
Oh,
American.
that's great. Congratulations. How did they find you? Did they see you online? Were you introduced? Because a lot of my guests actually want to be entrepreneurs. That's why this episode will really help people who are on the fence. Just take the big leap, right?
Yeah, I think power of networking. You have to constantly network, meaningful networking, not just like going out and just randomly socializing, but how can you add value to them? How can they add value to you? I will continue to emphasize networking is the key. Social media and all these things are important tools for marketing and advertising your services and things like that, but the emotional connection and the trust you have to build with the team, with your clients, is very important. And like our field, there is so much, it's so complex, and I'm sure any field has all these complexity. Things will go constantly wrong and all that, so everybody's looking for trusted partners where when things go wrong, how can you be your creative self again and problem solve, and just not spot the problem but come up with solutions to solve it. And whether it's a design problem or it could just be a simple supply chain problem, anything, because at the end of the day it has to work as a team with even with the client. It's no longer like that's your scope of work and that's my scope of work. So I think that's very important. So human connection and building trust is key.
I go to this hospitality conference every year. It's called the Independent Lodging Conference, and they do a lot of boutique hotels.
Yeah,
And I
I've
know
been to
the
one. I've been to only one.
ILC. Which
Yeah,
one?
I went to Miami. I
I
think
was
it was
there. I was there
okay.
too. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we didn't know
Andrew,
each other.
yeah, Andrew Benioff,
Yes,
he's a
yes,
friend.
yes.
And every time,
Amazing.
yeah, we're friends. And I went to the Austin one, and the first, because this was the biggest, because the ILC is getting really big. And then you see a lot of
Yes.
people in suits and like already just trying to make their quota, right? Like, because I've
Yeah.
been going to the ILC for like 5 years. I'm one of the old timers,
Oh
right?
wow.
And so I mean, like we
That's
don't
the best.
dress up, right?
That's the
Like
best
Andrew just
ones.
wears a t-shirt and like whatever sneakers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah, it's
yeah,
casual, and
so
I
when we
love
went
it,
to
and I loved
Austin,
it.
I was
And
like, wait,
just
where are all these
yeah,
people coming from? How come they're dressed so nice? The rule is Andrew went up on stage and said, number one, no selling. Number one, he said no selling in the, I know you guys are here because your company
Yes,
sent you here, but in ILC, we form meaningful relationships because if I like you, then maybe I'll work with you. And then for people, he saw a guy in a suit with leather
yeah,
shoes. He's like, "Is this your first ILC?"
yeah.
And then he's like, "Yeah, how did you know? Because you're wearing a suit. We only wear jeans and like." But it's true. It's powerful networking and connections.
Yes, I agree. Life is short, and then you don't want to spend your time. There's already all these external factors which are going to create negative stress levels and things like that, which is out of your control. But then at least, you can control the people you work with or collaborate with. And, it's better to have people who are aligned with your vision and you're helping them and they're helping you. So you feel accomplished and they feel accomplished. And that should be the goal. So I try to team up with those kind of people. And so, yeah, to answer your question, all these projects, even my first project is through referrals, is through connection. Of course, TikTok videos are getting popular. I haven't not got a single project from, I mean, I don't have TikTok videos, but I've not got a single project through social media. The social media for me is just, showcasing what I'm doing. I mean, but you never know. Things may change. Maybe I'll become a
No,
TikTok
it does work,
person.
but it requires a lot of time. And it seems like you're doing pretty well. You don't need TikTok right now.
Yeah, I don't have good acting skills. I don't have good acting skills, but I am a dancer, so maybe I can
I
start
know.
dancing.
So I love the way you're so strong and you're so confident. Anything you can share, any mistakes that led you to where you are now, or a mistake that led into a blessing or something like that?
Yeah, I think right now I will say I don't remember the past. I'll get to it. But right now I feel like my biggest it's not like my mistake, but I'm learning what things are not working is the general contractor world is very tricky and they are not again, like maybe some general contractors will not agree, but a lot of general contractors don't have the same level of ethics as designers and professionals have. So, exposing some of the novice clients who are never used to this. Now, the developers are different and hoteliers are different. They are used to dealing with this. But I'm talking about like small business owners and like single family home owners who have never dealt with these kind of things. And I feel like some of the current smaller these kind of projects when they're getting directly exposed to the unsophisticated or the unprofessional GCs, it's creating a lot of stress. So I don't think I have a solution, but my lessons learned is that I'm going to try to educate and manage that as much and kind of like shield the client away from all these other stress, but then that will also mean that I'm taking on that stress. So I don't know if I really answered, but that's what I'm facing right now is like really partnering up with like ethical people. Like unethical people are really a problem and a challenge. And and also not taking people from their face value. When they say that they're going to do things, you think they're going to do because when you're coming from corporate America world, usually they're not unethical. There are other issues here and there, there's bureaucracy, but people are ethical for most part. But then when you're a small business entrepreneur, you're kind of exposed to all kinds of people, and sometimes the budget dictates who are you working with. So I think moving forward, I'm trying to really understand that and really figuring out how to find those problem areas early on and what are the red flags I need to see, and then either quickly come up with a solution or cut myself out because then you lose a lot of time, energy, resources. As a small entrepreneur, you could lose a lot of money too.
Perfect example of creative design thinking in business, right?
Yeah.
Just already you're one step ahead.
Well, I don't know if I'm one step ahead, but I'm definitely going through this process and definitely trying to come up with solutions where I can mitigate this problem so that I'm not because I feel sometimes guilty that the clients are facing so much issues, but it was not really my scope of work. But then I cannot say, okay, it was not my scope of work, so I have to jump in and help them out. So we'll see.
How do you deal with stress?
I do a lot of yoga. I've recently started working out in the gym, And I'm also reading the book I was talking about earlier, the philosophical book about mind balance. It's by the Dalai Lama, and the other book is by Indian philosopher Sadhguru. So they talk about how do you control your mind and your emotions, and stay, because all these external world is going to aggravate you, because they mean nobody and nothing will align with what your standards are, whether it's low or high. So how do you balance yourself internally so that you don't get so worked up, and you manage? Because as an entrepreneur, you are the punching bag from every side. Your consultants or your employees are constantly complaining or punching you. The clients are always unhappy, or there's some issue, something. There's always something. Even if it's like a perfect project, they'll find something. Or the GCs or the subcontractors or the finance, that's all these external factors. So as a business owner, you are the punching bag. And as a punching bag, you can only take so much. So you have to find a way to shield yourself from all these external negative stress. And I'm not going to say that I've mastered it. I snap too, but I'm trying not to. And by doing all this mindfulness practice, hopefully it's helping me. We'll find out. We'll find out in my year 5. How did I do?
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's not easy to be running a firm. How many people are in your team right now?
So I have 3 consultants on the design side. I have 3 on the marketing and PR side, and then I'm very involved. I do my design. I still do drawings. I'm still doing, like I'm very involved. But at some point, I'll have to start, detaching myself. When I say detaching myself, as in like putting other people in charge of certain things. But like my growth is more sustainable and organic. I just don't want to grow so fast that I'm not able to sustain that. Yeah, so this is my journey so far, and it's been a blast. I love my team. They're incredible.
And I'm impressed that already at year 3 you have a
Yeah.
marketing team. A lot of designers and people who start their own firms, they'll get their marketing team after they hire employee number 3 and their pipeline runs out. But you already have a marketing team up front. How did you get your business acumen? Like, how did you become so savvy?
So I would give some credit to my previous bosses. So, the previous architecture firm where I worked, the partner or the founder of the company, he is a tenacious businessman. The other thing you have to face is rejection. That's also, you have to build your muscle. You're constantly said no, you have to convince people and everything. So I learned that from him, is that tenacious behavior, like, if the client says no, it doesn't mean that you never talk to them. You have to figure out ways so that you can be considered for the next opportunity. You figure out how or what is important to them. So I learned that from him. Now marketing, I think I'm a natural marketer. Like I believe that it's important that you're doing good work, but it's also important to communicate with the world that what you're doing, and not like fluff, no fluff, but like reality. Like so that because people can see, if you're a fluffing marketing, you just have these fancy words and images, it can only take you so far. You have to do the work, you have to walk the line, but you also have to communicate with your bigger audience that what you're doing. Some people are great designers, but they don't showcase or they don't talk about what they do. And I don't have godfather in this country or anybody who can do my promotion, so I have to do it myself. Yeah, so that's so yeah, and also like just listening and learning from other businessmen or women who've been successful and who I appreciate. So I see what they are doing, and I and then also like I have my own ideas too. I love marketing. So whether I had a project or not, I still had the marketing. My friend who's also a great marketing person, she was from me from the day one. And so whether we had a project or not, we believed, like my 3 toes, my name, my brand, it's continuing. And we started that, or like I came up with those 3 things even before the LLC was formed. Because if you don't have your DNA and your core brand, or at least an idea, it's going to evolve, and it's going to, it has to polish over time, and you have to morph. But I do believe in that. Like good PR, marketing, and branding is very
Yeah.
important.
Where do you think you get the most clients from? Is it a combination of everything you're doing, or is there or like face-to-face marketing? Because
I think relationship building,
so what happens when you go in
relationship
a
is key.
space like, so it's just
'Cause,
the relationships you've built for like the last 20 years. You'll approach former colleagues and clients and say, "Hey, I'm on my own." Is that how you started?
uh, yeah, pretty much it. Or I think like some people already knew that I should be doing things on my own anyways. They were like, well, thank God you started. So I think people around you kind of know that you're up to something. And then you just tell them that, hey, like I'm starting. If there are some opportunities, here are the projects, here are the things I want to do, but it's important to ask. So I do ask, like, this is what I'm doing. If you have opportunities, or if you don't have opportunities, if you can think of other network you have, and put me in touch, and I would love to connect. Here's my capabilities. How can I help? But you do have to ask, and I ask. I'm not
Yeah, a
afraid.
lot of people are very shy about that.
Yes, I think initially you are awkward. I think everybody is because they feel like how can you just ask? But then if you don't ask, how does the other person know what you want? Um, and then again, like you cannot be so aggressive that, oh no, I have to meet my goals. Can you give me this much project or something? So there's a fine balance to understand, what they have currently in their pipeline. How can you help? Are you the right fit for this project? You may not be the right fit. Maybe some other connections you can work with. So it's a nonstop process. I think everybody would agree with me. Like it's not like I go in, I tell them, and they give me the project, and I'm out of there. It's never like
Yeah,
that. At least not
it's
for
everything. You got to do everything all at
yeah.
once. So since
Yeah.
you're right now extremely busy, I have a question. Where do you see the building environment? And I know you're doing hospitality, a multifamily and residential, right?
Single family homes. Yep. Yep.
Do you see the business thriving in the next 2 to 3 years? What are your thoughts on the economy right now?
So I don't control the whole capital market,
Yeah.
so I cannot very intelligently talk about that. But I feel like as long as there are humans, you still need space to live, work, play, eat. So even though it may come down a little bit, but you have to live, and you're going to live.
Yeah.
I mean, we are fortunate, or we are not living in the caves anymore, so we are living in built environments. So you'll always need that. You will always need a home or an office or a restaurant.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm capitalizing on, is that as long as you have humans,
Yeah.
you will need spaces for
I
them.
like that because I also run my own business and I always wonder like, oh, I'm busy now, but what's going on in the next 5 years? For me, it's I'm always wanting to find out my blind spots or what's going on around the world, like the tech industry is collapsing and laying off, but the architecture industry is thriving. I think the building interior designers and architects are so busy right now. I mean, in Chicago, I was just there a month ago, I think there's so much construction.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's just human nature. Something will go up, something will go down, and you can't like overreact to something where it's going fantastic, and then overreact to something which is not going fantastic. Your life is a sum of all these ups and downs. So that's my philosophy too.
It's great. I really enjoyed our conversation. I have a few more questions.
Sure.
So, who is Smita Sahu outside of āśaya?
I'm a again like I'm a creative. I'm an independent woman. I love supporting other independent women or aspiring independent women or not. I think my calling is to really help support that aspect. I used to be a designer, sorry, a dancer, but I don't dance anymore. I'm a trained Indian classical dancer, but unfortunately I don't practice it anymore. I'm an artist. I learned painting and watercolors throughout my life, and that's the teacher I was talking about. So I enjoy that. I love traveling. I think traveling and exploring, I have a very curious brain, so I love to just soak different cultures, learn from different cultures, but also like there's a thread. Like a couple of years back I was in Bali, like Indonesia, and I felt like there was such so much influence of Indian culture there. And in fact, some of the names in some of the temples are they have original Sanskrit words and everything. So I really enjoy discovering that you went somewhere, I had no idea, and you connect these dots. Other than that, I like to sleep. I like to exercise,
I like sleep.
yoga, and you know, sleeping is important.
Right, right.
I like my beauty sleep. I'm a very social person, so lots of friends, lots of incredible women and men friends who continue to help me grow as a person and love to cook. So
See what kind of cuisines I saw in your bio that's your thing now.
yeah.
You enjoy cooking.
So I love Indian cooking, obviously, but I also love the fusion cooking. So I will take like a Italian recipe and deconstruct it and add some Indian elements to it. I mean, it's the same creative brain in different forms. So cooking also becomes another form of creative expression, using ingredients which you find here, but using an old Indian recipe with the new ingredients in America, and how does that blend? And some experiments don't work, some experiments work. I mean, I have to eat all of them anyways. It's not a commercial kitchen, so not too many people have to, face my experimentation. But cooking is something which is very therapeutic too for me.
You're a true creative
Yeah.
who likes everything about the arts.
Yes.
So where do you see Asaya in 3 years?
So 3 more years. Okay, I'll tell you my dream. I think I want to grow the studio with meaningful projects. I just don't want to take a bunch of projects just because we want to hit our goals. I want to see it be like a 6-person team in next 3 years, doing a lot of meaningful, uh, good brand projects. Like for me, the brand name and the client name and the value you add is very important. So not necessarily, and of course, profitable. So it has to be, the brand value, the brand equity has to be strong, and also profitable. So that's where I see in 3 years.
So I'll come
And
back in
also,
3 years. We'll talk
yes,
about this. Maybe
yes,
you'll have 20 people. You never
oh,
know.
you never know. You never know.
Anything else?
That's pretty much it. And then, like, I think this year, the one of the big initiatives I'm trying to do is set up some collaborations in India, work with some NGO who are doing a lot of like rural development for girl children and women, education and employment and those kind of facilities. And I'm in talks with few of them, and hope that comes to fruition as well. Everything takes time. But that's a big part of Asaya. It's I just don't want it to be just a profit business. If I want this to be a this to be called as a social entrepreneur, like I consider myself a social entrepreneur, where I'm not only just making money or business for myself, but during the process, I'm helping others, whether it's through, you know, charity organization, doing projects which are uplifting certain demographic, and I want to continue that way, where we are not an NGO, but we are a social entrepreneur. So
I
that's the
believe
dream.
generosity is the key to success. Truly. That was Smita Sahoo of Asaya Design. Thanks for listening to this episode of Architect My Life, a podcast brought to you by MGS Global Group. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to add to the conversation through your own experiences, I encourage you to be a guest in one of our upcoming episodes. Visit architectmylife.com to apply and learn how. I firmly believe that a strong community drives change and fosters success. If you'd like to be part of this community, join the All Women Architect My Life Facebook group. Please take a moment to review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again for listening. I'm Āśaya Shlachter. Until next time.